In the last couple of classes, we were discussing on various aspects of health psychology. So, to formally talk about health psychology, I am dedicating this class. So, health psychology, as we know, is the application of psychological theory and research to health, illness, and healthcare. Three things: health, illness, and healthcare. Certain concepts or points that is important to understand here is that health psychology is concerned with the psychology of a range of health related behaviors. Remember, health related behaviors are studied in health psychology, including healthy eating, the doctor patient relationship, a patient's understanding of health information, and beliefs about illness. Just to give a brief about this course. The biopsychosocial model, which is a prominent model in understanding health psychology, that views health and illness as the product of biological characteristics such as the genes or genetic influences, behavioral factors like the lifestyle, stress, and health beliefs. We call them psychological factors also, and social conditions like cultural influences, family relationships, and social support. So these are the three major dimensions, or the combination of these three dimensions or two dimensions to explain health, illness, and healthcare. These are the three key components of biopsychology. We also study about clinical health psychology, which is also known as CIHP, clinical health psychology. That refers to the application of scientific knowledge derived from the field of health psychology to clinical questions that may arise across the spectrum of healthcare. So, if it is a clinical question, then we talk about clinical health psychology. When it is called as a clinical case, when you need serious intervention, intervention in terms of some kind of therapy once the disease is onset. But health psychology mostly tries to understand how we can work on the preventive aspects. I'll come to the next concept is called public health psychology, or PHP, is a population oriented investigation of the potential causal links between psychosocial factors and health at the population level. Currently, during this pandemic, we are trying to understand how COVID-19 is affecting people across the globe or in different geographical regions, how it is going to affect or is affecting, so that we can manage or plan treatments or therapeutic interventions as well as prevention. Then the next concept that is concerned with health psychology is called community health psychology, or COHP, that investigates community factors that contribute to the health and well-being of individuals in their communities. So people live in communities. In the community, there are biological mechanisms which helps in spreading a disease. There are psychological mechanisms as well as social mechanisms which helps spread the disease or helps control the disease or prevent the disease. So how community plays an important role in understanding health is studied in community health psychology. Then comes critical health psychology or CRHP, which is concerned with the distribution of power and the impact of power differentials on health experience and behavior, healthcare systems, and health policy. Here we are talking about who are the people take, taking decisions, who makes the major decisions in healthcare settings. Is it an expert or is it anyone who is working in that sector, or is it the administrators or the policies? How the policies are uh, uh, maintained, like uh, currently we are talking about SMS, sanitizer mask and social distance. So this is a policy, public policy to prevent the coronavirus spread. How it has been come to practice or how it has been conceptualized is the uh, role of critical health psychology professionals. Some of the other key terms that are related with health psychology are public health, the science and practice of community hygiene that includes preventive medicine, health education, sanitation, and environmental safety. Then, health psychology as a discipline, as we know, with an understanding of biological, psychological, environmental, and cultural factors that are involved in physical health and prevention of illness. And biopsychosocial refers to having biological, psychological, and social characteristics. With these key concepts in health psychology, we'll move forward to a detailed discussion on health psychology. Health psychology often referred to as behavioral medicine or medical psychology. It is the application of psychological theory to health related practices. The field of health psychology includes two subfields. Behavioral health focuses on prevention of health problems and illnesses, while behavioral medicine focuses on treatment. So, one is on the prevention and the other one is on treatment. So, prevention aspect is called as behavioral health and the treatment aspect is called behavioral medicine. Health psychology is concerned with the psychology of a range of health related behaviors, including nutrition, exercise, healthcare utilization, and medical decision making. These are the areas where health psychology and health psychology professionals work. Now, coming to the model, which is the guiding uh, principle of health psychology, the biopsychosocial model. This biopsychosocial model views health and illness behavior as products of biological characteristics such as genes, behavioral factors such as lifestyle, stress, and health beliefs, and social conditions such as cultural influences, family relationships, and social support. Health psychologists work with healthcare professionals and patients to help people deal with the psychological and emotional aspects of health and illness. This can include developing treatment protocols to increase adherence to medical treatments, weight loss programs, smoking cessation, and others. Their research focus on prevention and intervention programs designed to promote healthier lifestyle. So they suggest exercise and nutrition programs. And what are the goals of health psychology? There are 8 major goals of health psychology. Number one, understanding behavioral and contextual factors for health and illness. Understanding behavioral and contextual factors for health and illness. Context is important. Number two, preventing illness. Number three, investigating the effects of disease. Effects of disease. Number four, providing critical analysis of health policies. Health policies are uh, designed by policymakers at the government level. So whether some of the policies do actually beneficial for the public or not, that has to be analyzed. Number five, conducting research on prevention of and intervention in health problems. Research is basic necessity for any public policy. Without research, we can't have any public policy. So we must conduct research on prevention and intervention of uh, health problems. Number six, improving doctor patient communication. So, how doctor patient communication can be improved? Many a times, doctors don't have much time to interact with the patient. They quickly prescribe medicines without trying to understand the person as a whole. We call that whole person perspective while you try to treat or while you attend a patient. In the medical schools, though it is being taught that whenever a patient comes to you, try to understand the root cause of the problem. Rather than doing that, many doctors they quickly jump to conclusions and prescribe medicines. So improving doctor patient communication is important. Number seven goal, improving adherence to medical advice. It is often observed that patients do not adhere to the medical advice given by the doctors, be it taking medicines in time, be it avoiding certain foods, or doing some kind of exercises for quick results. Many patients don't follow those guidelines, or it might be possible as soon as the symptoms are uh, absent, the patient thinks that he is all right and stops medication. In fact, in some of the medicines, for example, antibiotics, if someone is taking, there is a particular course for the antibiotics. But if you stop antibiotics just because uh, you have been cured of the disease without taking this and full course of antibiotics, and you stopped it, you become resistant, or your body will not be that effective when next time you got an infection. So this is the logic put by the doctors, and they ask the patients to continue the full course of antibiotics. But due to poor adherence to medical advice, many people don't follow it. So improving adherence to medical advice is also one of the major goals of health psychologists, to understand why or why not it is happening. Number eight, finding treatments to manage pain. Now, pain is a very critical issue. We do not have pain doctors as such, but pain is uh, a, uh, an issue which mm, makes people uh, irritable, which makes people seek for intervention or quick relief. And we have a very good painkiller market. I mean, many painkillers are available in the market in the with the pharma companies in the medical stores, and we use them indiscriminately. So, does it subside? Does it cure the pain, or it suppresses the pain? That is more important to understand. because most of the pain are because of our lifestyle, because of our lifestyle. But we hardly recognize that. Suppose I'll be sitting for hours together in front of the system, so I'll be having pain in my waist, in my shoulders, in my hands, in my elbow, in my fingers. But without changing my habit, I'll go to the doctor and ask for some kind of pain reliever. And the doctor prescribes some pain relievers, I get it. And for the time being, it is suppressed. But after some days, it again resurfaces because I didn't go for the root cause analysis of the pain. So this is also another goal, the last goal of health psychology. So health psychology addresses individual and population level issues across four domains. As I have already told you, the clinical, public, community, and critical. Critical means social justice. So let us again discuss these four in little. Clinical health psychology refers to the application of scientific knowledge to critical questions that arise across the spectrum of healthcare because it focuses on the prevention and treatment of health problems. Clinical health psychology is a specialty practice area for clinical psychologists. Clinical practice includes education on mechanisms of behavior change and psychotherapy, how various forms of psychotherapy would help in changing our behavior. So someone is behaving in an inappropriate way. So how to change that behavior? Washing hands very frequently. And during this corona period, if you are aware of one of the uh, neurotic symptoms, psychological symptoms, that is called obsessive compulsive disorder. People having OCDs earlier, their symptoms have worsened during this corona period because hand sanitation, hand hygiene is the one of the mm, biggest preventive measures for the virus in spread. These people are doing it more often, and the skin of these patients is uh, uh, getting so becoming so harsh, and sometimes they bleed also. So think of this situation, how we are going to address these issues, those who are already suffering from OCD kind of symptoms, how we are going to address their issues. This is a very critical kind of case. Then next is public health psychology. Public health psychology investigates potential causal links between psychosocial factors and health at the population level. Public health psychologists present research results on epidemiological findings related to health behaviors to educators, policymakers, and healthcare providers in order to promote public health initiatives for at risk groups. So, we know that this is a public health crisis. COVID-19 is a public health crisis and it has been already declared as a pandemic by WHO. So, we are creating some kind of uh, preventive, we are putting efforts on preventive aspects, and as a measure, there is a guideline given by WHO that children aged below 10 years and people, adults aged above 60 years or 65 years should not visit crowded places because they are more vulnerable to this virus. So we are creating awareness through public health practices. This is the policy document, or this is a policy, and maintain 6 feet distance from each other. If you at all we are meeting people, wear mask all the time when you speak to another person, and frequently wash your hands. But now, how it is getting implemented, we need to understand that. Now, suppose somebody says that frequent hand washing is mandatory for keeping yourself safe from coronavirus. Now, how frequently, and when, and where, and with what? So, these details of education is not given to anyone. Our job is to tell people, if you are at home, not going outside, there is no need to panic and wash your hands very frequently, because it has also its negative impacts. At the same time, while you are on walk or doing some exercise, you are not supposed to wear mask. Who will tell them? Many a times, some of the guidelines are followed blindly because we don't question the uh, application uh, depending on various kinds of activities. These are general guidelines. We can't create specific guidelines for each and every individual. So creating awareness in a form and format that would be easily practiced by the public is the goal of public health psychology. Now coming to community health psychology. Community health psychology investigates community factors that contribute to the health and well-being. Community health psychology also develops community level interventions that are designed to combat disease and promote physical and mental health. Some of the examples of community health initiatives might be efforts to eliminate soft drinks from schools, diabetes awareness events. These are some of the community health awareness programs we can uh, have in schools, colleges, or maybe community centers to create an awareness among the public. Now, soft drinks are not good for health. We all know that. We also know that smoking is not good for health, alcohol is not good for health, but still we are uh, smoking, we are consuming alcohol, and all this. So, when we are targeting an audience to create awareness in a community, we must uh, make it so uh, frequent that the message goes to them clearly. Yes, it is not good for us. Now, you may question, if it is not good, why then it is being produced? Why there are factories? We don't have an answer for that. We can't answer why at the first place they are there. Then comes critical health psychology. Critical health psychology is concerned with the distribution of power and the impact of power differentials on health behaviors, healthcare systems, and health policy. Critical health psychology prioritizes social justice and the universal right to good health for people of all races, genders, ages, and socioeconomic positions. A major concern is health inequality, and the critical health psychologists act as an agent of change, working to create equal access to healthcare. Now, when it comes to equal access to healthcare, we are also focusing on equal access to a healthy living. Now, coming to healthy living, what is a healthy living? You must have very good drinking water. You must have good food available to you. If it is not available to you, you are going to suffer from many diseases. At the same time, you must have a good place to stay so that you can stay protected from the uh, environmental hazards like extreme temperatures, rain, thunderstorm, and all others. So, if a specific population is exposed to some of these external dangers, how then they can remain healthy? That is the goal of critical health psychologists. So, the biopsychosocial model states that health and illness are determined by a dynamic interaction. Remember, it's a dynamic interaction between biological, psychological, and social factors. The biopsychosocial model of health and illness is a framework developed by George L. Engel, George, George L. capital dot Engel or Engel, Engel, that states that interactions between biological, psychological, and social factors determine the cause, manifestation, and outcome of wellness and disease. Historically, popular theories like the nature versus nurture debate posited that any one of these factors was sufficient to change the course of development. The biopsychosocial model argues that any one factor is not sufficient. It is the interplay between people's genetic makeup, that is biology, mental health and behavior, that is psychology, and social and cultural context that determine the course of their health related outcomes. Now, what are the biological influences on health? Biological influences on health include an individual's genetic makeup and history of physical trauma or infection. Many disorders have inherited genetic vulnerability. The greatest risk or single risk factor for developing schizophrenia, for example, is having a first degree relative with the disease. The risk is 6.5% or more than 40% of monozygotic twins of those with schizophrenia are also affected. If one parent is affected, the risk is about 13%. If both are affected, the risk is nearly 50%. So let me put it in very simple terms how we are understanding the effects of genes on health or illnesses. For example, how schizophrenia uh, happens in families. If uh, we have a first degree relative like brothers and sisters uh, having schizophrenia, so there is more than 40%, the risk is 6.5%. Uh, I mean, out of 100 families, uh, uh, six, 6 to 7 families would have uh, schizophrenia if their brothers or sisters have schizophrenia. Now, in case of monozygotic twins means uh, twins who are either boys or girls from one zygote, that is called monozygote. In monozygotic twins, it becomes 40%. Suppose you take 100 monozygotic twins, so out of 100 monozygotic twins, 40 monozygotic twins will have schizophrenia. If one of the twin is having schizophrenia, the other one would definitely have schizophrenia. Similarly, if a parent is affected, the risk is one parent. If either father or mother is affected, the risk is about 13%, 13%. So out of 100 families, uh, we will find uh, in 13 families, the children or one child will have schizophrenia if one of the parent is having schizophrenia. and if both parents are affected, the risk is nearly 50%. So it becomes half, 50%. The risk becomes very high. So this is how we study the genetic influence on health and illness. It is clear that genetics have an important role in the development of schizophrenia, but equally clear is that there must be other factors at play. Certain non biological, such as the environmental factors, influence the expression of the disorder in those with a pre existing genetic risk. For example, diabetes. Nowadays, we say that if uh, your father and your father's father were diabetic, then there is a high chance that you will become a diabetic. But this is moderated by the environment and your lifestyle. If you lead a sedentary lifestyle and do not do any kind of exercises or any kind of activities uh, which supports the diabetics to grow, uh, you are going to suffer from diabetes. But if you do some kind of exercises to uh, uh, prevent diabetes, you can avoid it for uh, a longer period of time, uh, or you may suffer from diabetes for a small period of your lifetime. It might be possible that the genes may not get expressed because you have taken extra precautions and you followed a very uh, ideal health regime, so you won't suffer from diabetes. It is also observed that it's not always genetically transmitted. Not always true. Neither the genetic expression for all the diseases is 100% correct, nor the environmental control. Rather, a combination of both nature and nurture impacts our health and illnesses. But how it is done, that's a matter of research. Now, coming to psychological influences on health, the psychological component of the biopsychosocial model seeks to find a psychological foundation for a particular symptom or array of symptoms, such as impulsivity, irritability, overwhelming sadness. Individuals with a genetic vulnerability may be more likely to display negative thinking, and that puts them at risk for depression. Alternately, psychological factors may exacerbate a biological predisposition by putting a genetically vulnerable person at risk for other risk behaviors. So, this says that if you are genetically vulnerable, your parents, your brothers, sisters, or if you are a twin, one of the twins, and some of your relatives are suffering from any particular kind of psychological problems, and you are in such situation which which encourages those psychological symptoms to develop, you get it quickly. For example, depression on its own may not cause liver problems, but a person with depression may be more likely to abuse alcohol and therefore develop liver damage. So this is a collateral damage. We call this collateral damage. Liver damage as well as depression both. Increased risk taking leads to an increased likelihood of diseases. So this is the kind of risk taking behavior. So if we take more risk, we are suffering from more kind of problems. Now the third one is social influences on health. Social factors include socioeconomic status, culture, technology, and religion. For instance, losing one's job or ending a romantic relationship may place one at risk of stress and illness. Such life events may predispose an individual to developing depression, which may in turn contribute to physical health problems. The impact of social factors is widely recognized in mental disorders like anorexia nervosa. This is a disorder characterized by excessive and purposeful weight loss despite evidence of low body weight. So, size 0 or figure 0, people are becoming mad to maintain this size 0. The fashion industry and the media promote an unhealthy standard of beauty that emphasizes thinness over health. So they think that thinness is health, or they promote that thinness is health. This exerts social pressure to attain this ideal body image. Despite the obvious health risk, there are severe health risks associated with anorexia nervosa. But since the media promotes many of the youngsters, they become uh, uh, they are guided by all these media advertisements, and they think that that is the true knowledge. Many a times, whatever is shown in media are not the true knowledge. You may refer to one of my articles on media and mental illness. You can type it, or you may type my name. You can get this article from internet. How mental illness is represented in media, how wrongly it is projected in media. Many of these things are wrongly projected in media. So they need to be educated. If you want to present facts, you must know the facts well. Then the next one is cultural factors. Also included in social domains are cultural factors. For instance, differences in the circumstances, expectations, and belief systems of different cultural groups contribute to different prevalence rates and symptom expression of disorders. For example, anorexia is less common in non-Western cultures because they put less emphasis on thinness in women. Culture can vary across a small geographic range, such as from lower income to higher income areas, and rates of disease and illness differ across these communities accordingly. Culture can even change biology, as research in epigenetics is beginning to show. This is very interesting. Culture can even change biology. Specifically, research in epigenetics suggests that the environment can actually alter individuals' genetic makeup. This is a uh, significant finding, or you may say uh, 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 a finding which is going to change the entire understanding of health. For instance, research shows that individuals exposed to overcrowding and poverty are more at risk for developing depression with actual genetic mutations forming over only a single generation. This is very important finding. Now at the last, I'll talk about application of the biopsychosocial model. The biopsychosocial model states that the workings of the body, mind, and the environment all affect each other. According to this model, none of these factors in isolation is sufficient to lead definitively to health or illness. It is the deep interrelations of all three components that leads to a given outcome. Health promotion must address all three factors. As a growing body of empirical literature suggests that it is the combination of health status, perceptions of health, and socioeconomic barriers to accessing healthcare that influence the likelihood of a patient engaging in health promoting behaviors like taking medication, proper diet or nutrition, and engaging in physical activity. So, the behavior is important, and as epigenetics says, we can change our environment to get a result for the body or the health. So, accordingly, you can make a decision based on this. So, thank you. Uh, I stop here. Any questions? if you have. I hope you were listening to the lecture.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any
Yes, sir.
questions? Did you understand the concepts and the basics on this model, biopsychosocial model and everything? Any questions you may ask right now? No questions?